you really think among 8,436 tests, only 5 people were trying to get away with it? Like, of course some people are skating under the radar. And with no testing, do you think there's gonna be more people doing it? Yeah, there will be way more people. What's up guys, Derek, moreplayedSmart8s.com. Today we're going to be talking about the MLB. I got notified about this article a couple weeks ago. Major League Baseball stops testing its players for steroids after nearly 20 years, report says. Major League Baseball has stopped testing players for steroids for the first time in nearly 20 years due to the expiration of the sports drug agreement. 2 people familiar with the sports joint drug program told the Associated Press. The people spoke on condition of anonymity Monday because no public announcement was made. The halt in testing is a casualty of the sports lockout that started December 2nd and a provision in the joint drug agreement between MLB and the Players Association that states the termination date and time of the program shall be 11:59 p.m. EST on December 1st, 2021. Now I wonder how many players just had their fucking shit ready to go at that exact time, just like literally standing there in their bathroom with their pins loaded, watching the clock go down. And I wonder how many of the drug testers were like, let's catch a bunch of fuckers on the last day, just in case they start early. It should be a major concern to all those who value fair play, Travis Tygart, Chief Executive Officer of the U.S. Anti-Doping Association, said Monday. MLB and the union declined comment on the halt. Just last month, Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens were denied election to the Hall of Fame by baseball writers over suspicions of PEDs use. Manny Ramirez and Alex Rodriguez, who both served drug suspensions, fell well short in voting. If it's just a simple, and by the way, if you haven't seen, I think it's Game of Shadows, where they talk about the Balco scandal and Barry Bonds. I believe that's the title of the story or book. You know, it's like based on a true story. Very, very interesting and very insightful, especially relevant for talking about the MLB in particular. If it's just a simple matter of agreeing to it, Tygart said, you would have hoped they would have been able to would have been able to get that figured out so that when the game does restart, you don't have questions hanging over individual players based on size, speed, batting percentage, home run numbers, whatever it may be, that people are going to call into question again. Absent fear of detection, it is hard to predict whether some players will attempt to use PEDs in the period before a new collective bargaining agreement is in place, along with a restoration of the drug testing program. I don't know how it's hard to predict. I think it's pretty fucking easy to predict. If you're not testing, like, why would you not? You could easily do what the cyclists were doing, even in a good testing program, which was microdosing of testosterone, Tygart said. You can do testosterone gels or oral pills that can be out of your system, and you can do more in maybe weeks. Now, this is generalized. If you actually dig into the literature, you can find some pretty startling pharmacokinetic profiles of testosterone administration and EPO use, GH administration, and complete lack of detection even at dosages in bodybuilder territories. Like, it's pretty substantial if you know what you're doing or you have the genetic predispositions that are favorable for it, and or you understand the longitudinal data and contradict, the constrictions that come along with that for flagging on your blood test results or your steroidal module accordingly when you go into the testing pool. And I highly doubt they're not nearly as stringent as the UFC. So like, even when they're testing, like, is it high quality? Is it super scrutinous? It's not, there's not zero, but I mean, like, fuck, dude, for them to be like questioning, are some people going to be using it? Like, fuck yeah, they will. Baseball reached its first joint drug agreement in late 2002, a deal calling for survey testing in 2003. Urine testing for PEDs with penalties for violations began in 2004 under a series of repeatedly tightened drug agreements. Testing for banned amphetamines started in 2006. And in 2012, blood testing for HGH began, though it was suspended last year due to the coronavirus pandemic. The least effective program for actually detecting shit, human growth hormone testing, highly, highly, highly inaccurate. The likelihood of catching somebody is so minuscule. The amount of people that have been caught in the last fucking decade is like laughable compared to the amount of people who have actually taken it. And it's just like a lack of, high quality testing, unfortunately for them. Like the detection methods that they've developed, they're still not using and deploying on a regular basis in most testing leagues, like IGF-1 testing. They're using basic, it's based on the same kind of like isoform comparisons that you would be using to detect recombinant versus endogenous. So you would have what is the test called again? The HGH isoform differential immunoassay. So it was basically a way to detect if you have the kilodalton ratios that are identical to that of endogenous production from your pituitary, and or if it's basically there is a difference in the ratio of these isoforms, and these are basically like molecular masses of these different isoforms of GH that are spit out of your pituitary. But when you inject it, it's based on recombinant technology that uses just one isoform. So you can see a drastic disparity through negative feedback, because there is actually negative feedback through the GH-IGF-1 axis, whereby you have a shutdown of GH production and subsequent to that IGF-1 to some extent. However, if you have an influx of this one isoform, this one kilodalton variant of GH that's synthetic, and then all the other ones are suppressed, you're like severely altering the ratio of kilodalton variants in your body to a point that it becomes more easily detectable that there is an aberrant ratio of them. Not necessarily actually flagging for detection, but just inferring that it would be nearly impossible to have this ratio if you were not doping. So yeah, you can tag somebody using recombinant HGH, like commercial grade, Serostim, Norditropin, etc., through this testing, but it's like the window of actually being able to detect it in somebody is so short, and the lack of implementation of IGF-1 biomarker testing and blood test results, just absurd that this isn't a regular thing like every sporting organization, and instead they're still using the HGH isoform differential immunoassay. So yeah, it's a very, very like lackluster test, and it's very, very not hasn't been historically very good at detecting people, let's put it that way. It was suspended last year due to coronavirus pandemic. In December 2007, former Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell issued a report commissioned by MLB that implicated 85 players in PEDs use, including 7 MVPs and 31 All-Stars. Many denied the allegations. Moving down, while prominent players suspended under the drug program include Rafael Palmeiro, Ramirez, Rodriguez, and Robinson Cano, there were just 5 positives for PEDs among 8,436 tests in the year ending with the 2021 World Series. Miami pitcher Paul Campbell, Oakland outfielder Ramon Laureano, Seattle pitcher Hector Santiago, San Francisco pitcher Daniel Santos, and Colorado third baseman Colton Welker. It's like, do you really think among 8,436 tests, only 5 people were trying to get away with it? Like, of course some people are skating under the radar. And with no testing, do you think there's gonna be more people doing it? Fuck yeah, there will be way more people. Baseball's halts and testing was signaled to players in a work stoppage guide created by the MLB Players Association, distributed to its members, a copy of which was obtained by the AP. Will joint drug agreement testing be administered during a work stoppage? Read a heading on page 19. Based on the past precedent in the NFL and NHL, it is unlikely that MLB can administer JDA testing during a work stoppage. So just like the NFL and NHL, go figure. So kind of interesting that guys have like a fucking green light to just blast their faces off, essentially. Now again, worrying about microdosing, worrying about this, like they were already doing that, bro. Like they were doing that in season, and getting away with it. So do you really think they're going to be, pulling punches here? Sure, bioidenticals are going to be in play, things that could otherwise not have. Like you would never use like fucking Deca right now just because you're not being tested. You know that that's going to be in your system for over a year, bro. That kind of thing you would not be doing, or some idiots might do with poor guidance. But ultimately, people are going to heavily leverage bioidenticals right now, and I think it will be it could be a difference maker for who actually gets an edge in the upcoming season. So we'll see, bro. We'll see how this evolves. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do any of you guys still watch MLB? What do you think of it in terms of the prevalence of drug use in it versus other professional sports? And what do you think about their lack of testing right now? All the comments help the algorithm. They're much appreciated. Like, subscribe, check out my blog, moreplates.com. Follow me on Instagram at moreplates, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcasts. If you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below. My preventative medicine and hormone replacement therapy platform, where we connect you with high quality doctors for medical oversight and getting high quality diagnostics, interpretation of those diagnostics, and educating the patient on best course of action forward for optimizing biomarkers, quality of life, vitality, performance metrics. In some contexts, some individuals, if warranted, are going to get on medications for, depending on the situation. But the main thing that differentiates us from other clinics is we will not haphazardly throw you on medications. Rather, we evaluate all viable lifestyle interventions first and foremost to assess if there are ways to patch up deficiencies or imbalances through normal, natural interventions, through lifestyle manipulation, dietary changes, sleep hygiene changes, etc., before haphazardly jumping on a lifelong commitment of exogenous hormones. So again, we highlight the importance of educating the patient, getting high quality diagnostics, and the lab work necessary to make the appropriate steps forward and interpreting the actual state of that person's body at that time accurately, rather than using, cheap, low grade levels of testing. And when I say that, like, there are certain assays that are far less accurate for assessing certain hormone profiles and whatnot. We only use the highest standard of testing when we implement it for assessing hormonal function, imbalances, deficiencies, and best paths forward. So if you want high quality medical oversight, you can check out Merrick Health, linked in the description below. As well, if you want to support me, GorillaMind.com. I recommended formulas for nootropics, pre-workouts. I designed them myself, and I stand behind them, and I have been very overwhelmed with the support and people loving the formulas. It's great to see the brand blowing up over the years and getting the recognition that I think it deserves personally, based on the time and passion that's been put into everything, and seeing even like an industry shift. Since some of the stuff we've been doing with our formulas, there's definitely a shift in the industry that is moving towards a similar model to us, or basing a lot of the things they're doing on what we're doing, which is cool to see. So setting a standard, obviously a goal of always in an industry. As well, anything else that supports me, my recommended hair loss prevention products, the clothing company that sponsors me, my recommended diet model for gaining muscle and sports performance whilst being mindful of micronutrient intake and overall health, all in the video description below. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.